Greetings and welcome to the Astronomy Picture of the Day podcast. Today's picture for November 1st of 2025 is titled Pleiades from Planet Earth. So what do we see here? Well, off in the distance, just over the top of the mountain there, we see what is known as the Pleiades star cluster. Now, this is a prominent open cluster located in the constellation of Taurus, the bull, and very nicely seen often in the winter skies, not very far from the constellation of Orion, another prominent grouping of stars. Now, an open cluster like this is a relatively young grouping of stars that all formed together. And they then go through their lives, but for an open cluster, they're slowly spreading apart. So that means that they will not remain together, and over hundreds of millions of years, they will slowly disperse out into space. So it's very likely that 4.5 billion years ago, our sun was forming in a cluster much like the one we see here today. Although over that time, over those billions of years, the stars have slowly separated and worked their way out into the galaxy and are no longer specifically easily associated with one another, although there are ways to try to work back and see which stars might have once been associated with us. Now, here we see again the Pleiades star cluster. You can see some of the dust around it, and that is a dust cloud that the Pleiades cluster happens to be moving through at this point. That's actually not dust that was associated with the cluster itself. Now, the Pleiades star cluster, prominently known and looked at by many early astronomers, including Galileo, looking at it with his small telescopes, one of the very early objects that was looked at, and one of the more prominent ones. And Galileo was able to see with a telescope far more stars than just the few that you can see with the unaided eye. So with the aid of the telescope, we were starting to see that there were more stars present in the universe than we originally thought. It's also known by a catalog designation of M45, and that's Charles Messier's catalog from the 1700s, which was a catalog of a little over 100 objects that were then determined to not be comets. Now, that was all sorts of objects. There are galaxies in the catalog. There are star clusters. They were essentially fuzzier things that might look a little unusual through a small telescope. And that was a catalog of things like nebulae and star clusters and galaxies that we didn't know for sure what all of them were at the time, but did know that they were not comets. And since a lot of people were looking for comets at the time, it was good to have an overall catalog showing what the comets were and these objects that were not comets, so people were not constantly going back and looking at them. So it was a way of kind of keeping track of all of those, and the Pleiades ended up being one of those star clusters that happens to be cataloged in this group. Now, the cluster is relatively close, only about 400 light years away. Now, looking for comparison, we can see these stars are relatively bright and easily seen in the night sky. However, to compare our own sun, if you took our own sun 400 light years away, you wouldn't be able to see it. It would get that much fainter over just that short distance of 400 light years that you would really not be able to see our own sun at that distance. So that was our picture of the day for November 1st of 2025. It was titled Pleiades from Planet Earth. We'll be back again tomorrow for the next picture, previewed to be gravity's horseshoe. So we'll see what that is about tomorrow. And until then, have a great day, everyone, and I will see you in class.